All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We will get started in 2 minutes. Um, John, myself, Billy, we're going to go around, give everybody recording access. I ask that everyone raise their hand, and we will try to make it through all the questions. All right. I think we're just about through giving everyone access. I don't see any hands currently raised.
All right. Thanks for coming. We'll wrap it up.
And just like that, we have 3 questions. All right. We'll take the first question from Paul Newberry.
Hey, Travis, can you hear me now?
I can. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Well, my camera's broken, or at least that's the story I'm going with and sticking with it. So, hey, I just more of a big picture question before I'm sure the questions will come about the trade yesterday. How much do you think the problems you guys have had with injuries and COVID is to blame for where you're at right now, and how much do you kind of reassessing it? I think the optimism that everybody had about this team and the moves that were made after last season, what this team was going to be, that maybe that was some of that was not assessed correctly by perhaps you and us as well, and the media, who were, thought this team was probably headed to big things.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I never want to make any excuses, but here's a list of excuses for you, right? We had a short off season. We had 3 of our key guys had procedures over the summer, so when they came to camp, they weren't 100%, right? And we kind of know those guys, right? Clint, Kevin, and Bogey. So the start of the season, the other factor is we get all those guys back. Maybe they're not at 100%, and we struggled. DeAndre goes down, and then just by one person going down, which we had a lot last year, it kind of cleaned up our rotation. Early on, had a lot of guys. Nate trying to figure out who to play, when to play them, and then when DeAndre goes down, we get a rhythm, and there's kind of a consistent rotation. And then Bogey goes down in the New York game, I believe it was, with his sprained ankle, and now we have 2 guys down, and then we kind of see a dip. And then, then the COVID stuff happened. And I mean, the COVID stuff was real for us. I mean, I think at one point we had 11 guys in protocols, so that is real. Now we're at a point where everybody's back. So we don't have any of those excuses anymore, COVID excuses or injury excuses, other than Clint, who's got a sprained ankle, and hopefully, he'll be back in the next few days. So certainly you could say, all right, this is why we got off to a rough start. There are certainly games that we lost during that stretch, the 1st of December, that we, we feel like we shouldn't have. And, we've got to take accountability for that. And, I've said as much publicly. As far as, did we make the wrong assessment? Listen, man, I live every day, thinking about every decision that we make. And, that's part of the job, from the smallest 2-way contract, to the big max contracts of Trey. Like that stuff is always going through my head. Did we make the right call? Did we make the right decision? So you guys probably don't spend as much time thinking about it, but I certainly do. And so I guess to answer your question, yeah, I certainly spent a lot of time going over it. I still have a ton of confidence in this group. I've said in the past, you don't have to make big moves to change it up. I think, to this trade, sometimes you can make a minor move and it just change kind of the trajectory you're on. And that's certainly a hope that we'll get from this as well.
Thanks, Travis.
Yep.
All right, next question to Sarah Spencer.
Hey, Travis. Just overall, what was the thought process with this trade? You spoke to it a little bit at the end there, but just what was the thought process behind it?
Yeah, I don't think it's any secret. Cam had come to us at during the off season and expressed the desire to, maybe get to a situation where, he could have a little bigger role. He's certainly not the first player that's done that. He went about it the right way. It was no public proclamation. He showed up, went to work every day. But, we told him, listen, if there's something that makes sense for us, we'll certainly take a look at it. So, that was a part of it. We did our best to, my job, as I told the team yesterday when I told them about the trade, my job when a player, comes to you and says that, we want players that want to be here. We want players that are happy to be here, right? But it's also my job to do what's best for the Atlanta Hawks, not necessarily that player. I don't know if New York's going to be the perfect spot for Cam or not, but my job is to get the best value I can for Cam Reddish. And we certainly canvassed the league and, I had conversations, some in-depth conversations with a lot of different teams. And, we feel like this pick from Charlotte, even though it does have protections, I think my analytics group said like there's a 90% chance over the next 4 years we get this pick. So we think it's a real first-round draft pick. It's not a fake first-round draft pick. And, the one thing that I'll say about draft picks, everybody values draft picks. Every team might not value a player, but 29 other teams will value a real first-round draft pick.
I know you guys have been high on Cam and what he can bring to the floor defensively. When you're thinking about going through a trade like this, how do you as a GM approach like the cost benefit, analysis of letting someone with potential like that go, even if it's not being realized like maybe right now?
Yeah, that's the hard part about anytime you're talking about a 22-year-old player that, has played less than 150 games in the league. I think, he's, super high talent. We all see that, he's got great length, he's got great size, he's got great skill level. But, we're trying to blend the team together as well. So we have to take all that stuff into consideration. And listen, he could certainly go on and have an all-star caliber career, and I wouldn't be shocked at all by that. But he also wouldn't be the first player that didn't have that all-star caliber career with the team that drafted him either. Sometimes for whatever the situation, things don't click. I completely understand where New York's coming from. If I was New York and I had 3 first-round draft picks the way they did, and you look at Cam Reddish's potential, I get that. So I wish nothing but the best for Cam. Like I don't have any ill will towards him at all. We try to make the best decisions we can, and we move forward.
All right, next question to Chris Kirschner.
Hey, Travis, do you feel like one of the problems that you guys have is having too much depth on the roster and guys looking for bigger roles like Cam expressed to you?
Last year we essentially had the same roster, and as I mentioned earlier, it kind of all balanced out because it seemed like somebody was always injured. So we didn't, even when somebody came back, it seemed like somebody else went out. This year we haven't. Like you could certainly make the argument that, maybe except for a couple of guys, there's maybe not a big variance between some guys on our team, a clear-cut lineage. So when you're in that situation, you have a lot of guys that want to play, and that can be tough for the coach trying to keep everybody happy for sure.
All right, at this time, there are currently no hands raised. And there we go. Just got 2 more. Jeff Schultz.
Hey, Travis, just following up one of the early questions you sort of started to answer, but I understand the circumstances, but when you have to let go of a guy who was, I believe, a top 10 pick for you. How difficult is that? Do you worry about it coming back to burn you? And I'm just curious about your thought process.
I don't know if I worry about it coming back to burn me per se. As I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Cam Reddish goes on and has a great career. It certainly wouldn't shock me. I think, what we came to is that, he probably wasn't going to have that with us with the current mold. So we try to maximize, the return that we can get for him.
Thanks.
Okay, next question to Kelly Kroll.
Hey, Travis, you might have alluded to this when you said sometimes it only takes a minor trade to change the trajectory of a season, but do you anticipate anything more happening? What can you say about anything else you're maybe trying to do right now?
One of the reasons why we wanted to do this trade a little bit earlier, I've seen some people, saying, why wouldn't they wait? We wanted to see if just a little tweak would have an impact. This gives us 2-3 weeks before the trade deadline to see if a small tweak does kind of change the trajectory of the season. So by doing this early, it gives us that little runway to evaluate. And, again, our hope is that this will kind of change the course of the season for us.
All right, next question to Allison.
That was my question. So I'm good. Thank you.
Great job, Kelly. Next question to Paul Newberry.
You talked about speaking with the team and trying to, and expressing that you still got confidence in this season. This is not a move to give up on the season. Does it, you kind of feel like, do you worry about that at all? That with where y'all are at and making a trade like this, that it sends that sort of message, either to the team, the fans, whatever, to the league?
I don't think so. Certainly, I don't get the perception from our team that they feel like the season's lost. I think that, like all of us, they feel like, we put ourselves in a tough position, but it's certainly not a hole we can't dig ourselves out of.
All right, another question to Chris.
When Nate took over in the second half of the season, this team was around league average when it came to defensive rating. Obviously, you guys are near the bottom of that stat this season. This is mostly still the same roster from last year. What do you see as the main differences for why you guys have struggled defensively?
Well, I think, quite frankly, we just haven't been as good this year guarding the perimeter. And last year, Clint, came into the season 100% at the beginning of the season, and he didn't do that this year. So when you take those two things, it's been a bad combination. The other area, where we've really struggled analytically is transition defense. Obviously transition those are the easiest points you can get to in the game, and we've struggled with that. So when you take those three things into consideration, even if we just improved in the transition defense, I think you'd see us climb up the defense rankings quite a bit.
All right, next question, Kevin Chouinard.
Cam didn't start a whole lot of games this season, and he didn't play that much with Trey. As a person who had a high usage with the bench, how do you see this trade affecting the bench offense, especially in terms of the person who might be running things from the point of attack?
When healthy, again, last year our bench was really one of our strengths. They would come into the game and they would either, get the lead for us or extend leads for us. We haven't had that this year, to be, honest with ourselves. So, some of that is due because we've had guys coming in and out with all the things we've talked about, all the injuries and the COVID stuff. So, the hope would be that we can get into a rhythm and a rotation with those guys. One of the big things for us the second half of the season, with that second unit was the Lou and O pick and roll, and we haven't really seen that this year. Obviously O was out the first half of the season, So, I think as one of the things that we can do with that second unit is, get back to those guys, and I'm sure we will at some point. They were really effective for us last year.
Chris Kirschner.
The other day, John expressed his frustration on not getting clarity on what his role is supposed to be. Nate has said before that he doesn't call plays for John, and that's something that has bothered him. From your perspective, what is John's role when he is on the floor offensively, and where do you see his value?
Well, John's one of the best finishers in the league, in the pick and roll, and as far as spacing bigs, shooting the ball, he's a plus 40% 3-point shooter. So, the way that we play when we have, the other team switches on us, which a lot of teams in the NBA do switch, that's where he gets his pick and roll post ups from, is out of those switches. So even though the play technically might not be called necessarily for John, we do look to getting the ball in those situations. Spacing the floor, shooting the basketball. So he's certainly a big piece of our team. He's a big piece of, when he's involved, who's certainly a very efficient player for us offensively as well. To speak to the play calls, I'll let Nate answer those questions, but, John is certainly, one of the better finishers in the league, no doubt about that, from the perimeter and in the lane.
Okay. Next question, Kelly.
Travis, just one last thing. I know there's the theory of being the team that's now got a target on your back after having like success like you guys did a season ago. Are you noticing teams playing you guys differently this year in certain regards? And if so, like what have you seen?
Well, I do think that anytime that you have success, that it changes the way teams approach you. And there is a switch that it feels like we have a switch we can just flip. And we're still a young team, and I think one of the things that we have to get back to is showing up and playing every possession, as opposed to just trying to stay close and think we're going to turn it on at the end. I think we have to get back to that mindset that we are the underdog, and we can't just show up and win. And I feel like our guys know that, and I do think that all it's going to take is just to get a couple wins. Anytime that you have a streak like we've had, and again, going back to all the, to that road trip when we had 10 different guys on 10-day contracts, but all that builds up a burden on the guys, and just a little positive reinforcement can change things. And that's what we saw last year. I think it was actually in Miami last year, where we were in the exact same spot, 6 games under 500, and we get a big win in Miami, and then we have a good comeback in Orlando, go on the All-Star break, and I think the first game back, Tony Snell hits a shot in Toronto, and it just kind of catapulted us. And then success breeds confidence. So I really do believe that if we can just have a little success here in the next few weeks, even though we're playing a lot of good teams, that could really turn us around.
Thanks, Travis.
All right, Jeff Schultz.
Yeah, Travis, kind of along lines of what you were just talking about. I mean, that kind of stuff obviously is what drives coaches and GMs crazy, right? I mean, why won't you just do what you did last year? So what are your options? Is basically just sit back and kind of wait till it happens? I know you just made a trade hoping that kind of sparks things. Do you really have many other options, many other things you could do right now to sort of try to get it going? You and Nate?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And believe me, if there was just one thing I could put my finger on, or one switch I could flip and change everything, I would do it. I think that's what, a lot of people don't understand that about, or shouldn't say don't understand, but maybe don't appreciate, is that, at the end of the day, we're dealing with people as well too. And, it's not just, playing fantasy GM where you take one guy off a piece of paper and put another guy in there, like you do in your fantasy league. So, dealing with people and their personalities and their emotions, and maybe they have other stuff going on in their lives. So trying to factor all those things in, but if there was one thing and I knew the answer, believe me, I would do it.
All right, there are currently no hands raised. So last opportunity for a question. All right, well, thank you for your time, Travis.
All right, guys, thanks for coming. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Travis.